welcome back to the channel. My name is Sarah and this is another weekend review, this time for the second week of February. So I had a up and down week, I'm gonna be honest. I DNF'd 3 things. I read one lackluster manga that I'm gonna cover here because I don't plan on covering it in my month in review because I'm pretty sure I'll forget it by then. And an okay graphic novel, and then 2 very good arcs. So, to get the DNFs out of the way, I did DNF Strike the Zephyr by Joan He. I was about 75 pages into this one when I DNF'd it. There were a few things that stopped me on this one. The first was the style and the characters. So the style and the characters, the style felt almost like a young YA, which there's nothing wrong with that, almost middle grade, but I was reading about characters that were like warlords and like these incredible chieftains, and the main character is the like chief strategist for this empress figure, and it was a weird thing where we were reading about like this high level like stuff, but it read so young YA middle grade. I just couldn't quite like get my head around it. I think a younger reader could probably enjoy it a lot more, but it wasn't for me. And then there was a secondary plot introduced right after I DNF'd, or right before I DNF'd, about not only was she playing double agent and betraying her empress lady, but she also had a guy on her side who didn't trust her, and then her sister that she thought long dead suddenly shows up, and it was too much. So I noped out. Might be something that someone with like a faster taste in YA, like someone who likes some faster pace with a lot more drama, will enjoy, but that ain't me. So that was a DNF. I also DNF'd True Beauty by Yoongi, I think. I think this is a manhwa. It's a webtoon turned published comic, manhwa, manga, whatever you want to call it. I got like 40 or 50 pages into this one and DNF'd it. I just didn't like the possibly where the story was going. It was very soap opera-y. It just wasn't for me. And I also DNF'd Hooky, and I cannot remember the author on that. I remember she had a complicated name. They had a complicated name. This was just wrong time. I might come back to it in the future, but this was just wrong book, wrong time. I read a few pages, but I tried to pick this up around the time that I was having a spat of really bad cluster migraines, and it wasn't working. So that's like a soft DNF. I may return to that in the future, but for now it's off the TBR for the month. To knock out the very lackluster manga, I read Fangs, Volume 1 by I think it's Billy Bilaba. This was a 2.5, if I'm being generous. I have 3 stars written down, but on reflection, maybe 2.5. This is just, there was very little here. It was just a story for the sake of the smut, and I just was really excited. Honestly, I love vampires, so I was excited about the idea behind this, but from panel to panel, almost the characters acted differently than what you would expect, and the actual story had very little there that I could find, even for a first volume, so not a win for me. I probably won't be picking up the next one. The next graphic novel that I actually did finish and kind of enjoyed was Tide Song by Wendy Xu. XU. I'll put it on the screen. I think it's XU. My handwriting on that one is terrible. Anyway, this is a middle grade graphic novel about a young witch who is sent to study with her aunt and her, I think, one of her great aunts. Anyway, she ends up embroiled with a sea dragon, and her magic ends up tangled with his, and she's like on this path to try and get to this institute, and how all this ties together. It was okay. I think for the audience, it was probably something that a young kid would enjoy. Young Sarah would have enjoyed it. They would have eaten it up. But adult Sarah was I mean, it was a fun 30-40 minutes, but in the long run, it may not be something that I forget. I've read quite a few middle grade graphic novels at this point that are better, that I would recommend more. Off the top of my head, Seance Tea Party is a similar one with a similar feel that I would actually recommend over this one. But this one is beautiful, and it's a more current release, I do believe. So if you see it, I would say give it a shot if you enjoy the genre. Just wasn't a super hit for me. I think I gave it a 3-star. I'm thinking maybe moving out of my graphic novel moment that I had there for a bit, and I'm getting more back into my novel, science fiction fantasy time, which I expected. I tend to go in waves, as everyone does. I am a mood reader. The first of the books that I have to talk about, which 2 of these I forgot, is When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Nevo. And this is a story of Chi, and they are stuck on a mountainside with a mammoth rider on their way to, I think it's a large city on the other side of this mountain range. They get stuck in the barn. They're trapped there by 3 large tiger sisters. And to kind of try to stall for time and keep themselves from being eaten, Chi begins to tell them the story of When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain, which is a fable they've collected on their journeys. The Singing Hills cycle that this book is part of, this is the second, is about Chi collecting stories and fables, kind of building the world and the structure around them for the reader. It's fantastic series so far. So this one was them relaying this story to the tigers, which is a fable that the tigers also passed down. And it is looking a lot at how fables can distort and change between cultural groups. So the tigers remember the story one way, and Chi has been told the story another way, and so there's interjections between the two. They'll tell a narrative bit, and then the tigers will interrupt with what they have been told, what is the correct way. So Chi will, make a note. The whole premise being, we may let you survive to carry this on. If not, someone will find your belongings after we eat you, and they'll have the correct notes. It was very good. I highly recommend this novella series. It's very, very beautifully written. I love the world that it's set in. I love Chi. They remind me a lot of sibling Dex, another favorite character of mine. Just the kind of spunky attitude that they have, and the thought and care that goes into the structure of this world and the beings, the mammoth that we had in this story. I really loved that mammoth. So I'm very excited for the next one. I think it's called Into the Riverlands, and then the newest one is about I think more about the actual mammoth riders and the mammoths. So that's very exciting. So that was a great one. That one I read for the Tor.comathon. I also read Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk, which is another novella. This was also for the Tor.comathon, and this was the group book, or this is the group book for the Tor.comathon. And I actually really liked this. This was a much different novella than When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain. And I read them back to back, so it was a very interesting experience. This one is a more urban fantasy story about she's called a warlock by the other magic users in her world because she sold her soul to a demon to save her family, or to save at least her brother. And she was once in the line of this sorcerer mystic combination. She was set to become very powerful with her brother, and then she sold her soul and brought him back to life, but it cast her out, and she was shunned by the magical community. And she's been working as a PI in all these years since then, and she works right now for a woman, I believe their name was Malone, and she is tasked with finding out who the White City Vampire is. And this is a serial killer that is seemingly draining their victims of blood when they kill them. And I think, if I remember right, her name is Helen. Yes, Helen and Edith. Helen discovers that there is a much darker plot afoot. There may be rituals going on and all of this stuff. And this takes in, so we're dealing with inherent magic and urban paranormal setting. There's also angels, a lot of demons, turf wars between them. It was very interesting. There was a lot packed into this one novella for it not to have had other stories around it. I feel like this could have been, and someone else said that this could have been part of another story collection, like a series, or this, guess could even kick off a series if C.L. Polk decided. I wondered while reading it if this is a character that we are going to see in their other series, because I know they have a couple other series running. It would work. I thought that Helen was, I don't know, I thought Helen was really fun to follow. She had a lot of attitude, but she was very devoted to her girlfriend, which was really the sweetest part for me. Edith is not so much of a character herself, but another character possesses Edith for a while, and that character I adored. I like anything that has angels in it, of the like biblical or Jewish angel sense. I find that very interesting. That's a trope I like. Recently I read Peter S. Beagle's first short story collection. I don't know if it's out yet or if it comes out in April. I know the second one comes out in April, but he had a lot of stories that dealt with angels and angels on earth and their descendants and stuff, and I love that trope in urban fantasy. I guess I'm tired of seeing demons and devils as much as I am, but this had a lot of that and I enjoyed it. It had a lot of like violence against women, women being used and discarded, that sort of thing, and the idea that people can be sacrificed for power or redemption, especially in a religious context, kind of interlaying into it. And I don't know, just it was a solid read. I really enjoyed it. I didn't give it a solid 5. I think I gave that one a 4. It's another one, if you're in the mood for something urban and paranormal, it would be a fun thing to pick up. I don't know that it's the first thing I would recommend, but it's definitely on the list. It's a good one. And finally, the 2 arcs that I read this week, one of which came out this week, The Mimicking of Known Successes by Malka Older, I think came out Tuesday. It's now Thursday. You'll probably see this on Friday, so it came out this week. This is a Holmesian gas lamp science fiction mystery. That's what it was, is how I've seen it pitched. And I would agree with all of that. This takes place on Jupiter, which has been not terraformed, but as the rings have been established around Jupiter, and humanity is living on these rings. They're very elaborate, and honestly, that is going to be my one complaint about the book, is that they are hard to visualize, but otherwise, it's great. And on these rings, you know, there's structures for environments. Humanity has like outposts that they live on. And in this story, a man goes missing, and our main detective, Mosa, is investigating that. She is going to be our Holmes character, and she goes to this academy where this man worked and where her old friend, I think it's going to pronounce Paletti, works. And they are old friends, former lovers. They've kind of become distant in the years since Mosa became an investigator and Paletti became a scholar. But they come back together to work on this case, and eventually they come back together like as partners. And they investigate together, and Paletti gets drawn in with Mosa. And Paletti becomes our Watson. My favorite thing about this, I'm very particular about my Holmes, Sherlock Holmes pastiches and stories. I've read a ton of them. It's a trope I adore. I love Sherlock Holmes. And I've been burned a lot. But what I really loved about this is how Malka Older took the Sherlock Holmes archetype, like the kind of asshole, super hyper-focused, kind of almost emotionless character that you always see, and gave her a new spin and like more of a maturity that you don't always see with the Holmes characters. It was much more realistic. I want to like foil it against like Sherlock from the Sherlock Show or House. They're almost too far into the asshole range. Like, they're fine. They're not my favorites. I watched them, but you know, But this was like much more, Mosa was just much better, much more well done, I think. I really, really loved her as a character when looked at through the lens of Sherlock Holmes. And I really liked Paletti. She was our narrator. So she felt very Watson-esque. The mystery was really good. It had me guessing, which is impressive. Most mysteries I tend to solve fairly quickly. But this one had me guessing, and I liked the structure of the story and the narrative style. It felt very much like a Sherlock Holmes story. This is one I'll probably pick up to put on my shelves because I enjoyed it so much. It is the start to a new series of novella. This one was a novella. I don't know if the rest will be novellas. They may be full-length novels. This one was a little long for a novella, I felt, but it packed a lot in. So a really, really, really good one if you like Sherlock Holmes and mysteries. The last thing was Wolfsong, and this is a paranormal romance. This is by TJ Klune. This is technically out. I read a review copy because the hardcover is coming out in July. It's coming out on Independence Day, that's right. Very nice hardcover editions. They're getting re-released with new covers and hardcover. They're out on Kindle because this was TJ Klune's indie series before it got picked up. This was so good. I can't give it a 5-star. 4.5 is what I gave it. And this is the story of Ox and Joe, and it's told from Ox's perspective and how he grows up in Green Creek. And the story, or the series, is called the Green Creek something series, just the Green Creek series or the Green Creek Wolves. I can't remember the actual series name, but he's growing up with Joe. Joe moves into the house down the road after Ox's father leaves him and his mother. And I believe Joe is like 6 and Ox is 12, 10, 12. There's a bit of an age gap between them. They grow up. Ox gets wrapped up in the world of werewolves with Joe and his family, and there is a budding relationship and romance toward the latter half. This was intense in both a good way and a bad way. This was hilarious in that it had me laughing out loud, not like hee 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 little chuckles, but like vigorously laughing. I was laying in bed next to my husband reading this, and I was laughing so hard I was shaking him. So like there's that. And then within pages, I would start almost crying because of like an intense and like heartbreaking moment on the page. So this is a roller coaster of emotions. I was not prepared for it. And the writing style on this is really what captured me, I think, and was honestly the reason I was most trepidatious about this book, is that it's written very simply and staccato. Ox is very young when the book starts, and he reads young. He is reflecting back on his life, so his memories of being young are a more simpler like framework, and it's very short and abrupt almost. And Ox himself says several times, you know, I'm not a smart guy. I'm pretty stupid. And he reads as just a guy. He's not like super wise or super profound most of the time. He's very simple. And that, I think, kind of made it even more visceral and vivid and real for me. I know some people won't like that style, but it worked. It worked so well. And there is so much that happens in this. There are a lot of trigger warnings. I have all those listed on my Goodreads review that I caught. There's probably some I didn't catch. I would recommend checking others along with mine if you do check for content warnings. Child abuse, kidnapping, sexual assault, implied sexual assault more than anything, violence, death on page, death of a parent, things like that. It was a lot, but it was also ultimately very much worth it for me. This is one that I am going to try to get my little paws on. I want to annotate it. I want to go back through and highlight a lot of stuff because there's like foreshadowing moments, which I know again some people don't enjoy, so keep that in mind. And so it was very good. I feel like my last thought on Wolfsong, that I didn't put in any of my written reviews because I'm still not sure about it. I'm just turning it over in my head. A second to last thought is that this feels very much like a response to Twilight. And you know what? I'm here for it. This was set in Oregon. It had to do with werewolves, which Twilight has some werewolves in it. There is an imprinting, almost fated mates thing going on, and it was just so much better. It was just really good. My other thing I will say on it is I think some people, and I also thought it was a little strange, but I think it was handled okay. The age gap between the two boys is very weird, and they grow up together almost like brothers. But Joe quickly and immediately, when he sees Ox, imprints on him and knows like, this is the guy, this is gonna be my mate. And they grow up their whole lives, Joe on the assumption that Ox is gonna be his mate. Ox has no idea till he's in his 20s, but it was a little bit of an odd, like the age gap thing was a little strange with him being so young. And I know I've seen some people have like problems with that, concerns, issues with it, so keep that in mind. But otherwise, I loved this. I'm dying for Raven's Song, which is about Gordo, who is the grumpiest guy. I can't wait for Raven's Song. I'm going to read it either through an ARC or through the Kindle version, but it's gonna happen. So this is a series you will see more of on this channel. But that's it for my weekend review. A little bit of a longer one. Hopefully some interesting titles. I don't have anything else really to update you on as far as what I've read. I am still currently reading The Rise and Reign of the Mammals. I plan on picking up All the Horses of Iceland and the second Criminal Intentions and finally finishing that, as well as possibly Innovative Vice. I want to get a few romance in this week, so next week will hopefully be a little bit more romance heavy on the reviews. But that is it for now. Let me know what you think. If you've read any of these, if you want to, like, comment, subscribe if you'd like, and I will see you guys later. Bye!